Even when Eva was only half asleep, or lightly off adrift in a daydream, Faye would somehow find her way into their dimension. Through rifts torn in the ether, she would easily sneak her way in. Eventually, out of desperation to get away from the Silverskin, Seven convinced Eva to move with him all the way out to Old York, which was even further from French's Forest than New London, and possibly altogether free of that old-wheeled supernatural influence. In so doing then, he hoped to finally stem off every last trace of the Silverskin in his life, and finally be free of her wrath. He remembered how dreadfully bloodless Eva's face had drawn upon hearing the words French's Forest for the first time, as if she had been there before. But she had surely recovered herself and made it understood that she would support him wherever he needed her to go, whether it be there, or all the way out to Old York, or to the other side of the world, if that was where she had to go, in order that she may be with him. So then, after resettling into a new city, his visions of Faye did dissipate, and life started returning to shine and roses after all, without having her meddling in the mix, ever trying to take him back. He and Eva began finding happiness again, and things started improving beyond words could express, in a dream. But now today, they were once more back in New London, en route home to French's Forest. And every time they came through this town, Faye made her omnipresence most absolutely clear. He remembered the last time he had seen her here, several months ago, on a shopping trip of all occasions. They were in Main Square, and Eva was trying on a random black wig just for fun, when Seven accidentally called her Faye, and she now suddenly fainted. After racing her to emergency, he remembered pacing about the hospital wing, impatiently waiting on nurses, when he was suddenly overtaken by nausea. Retiring to the restroom, he splashed cold water on his face when thoughts of her began creeping back in. Glancing in the mirror then, he saw the Silverskin crawling down the wall behind him, with her yellow-black anaconda Draka coiling about her sinewy silver body as she stalked her prey. Two black horns stabbed out from under locks that danced upon her head like so many sick snakes of death. Electricity licked over her killer curves in electric gates, and when her green eyes met his, he felt a flash of energy zap through his mind, as if reading his thoughts, stealing his mind. Then her eyes began darting side to side, catching him up in a dizzying ocular lock of mystical bent. And he was soon paralyzed by her mesmerizing gaze. She then pointed one deadly long oil drop nail at him as her forked black tongue rang hungrily over jagged incisors. Lucky, lucky, she quietly began to sing in a blackly sickened lisp. Draka uncoiled from her waist, stretching out towards Seven, with equally hungry eyes as Faye, tensing up to strike. Seven spun about, crying out, throwing his arms wide, but the snake and the Silverskin were gone. His heart broke off from its rapid pounding, sweat beaded upon his brow. He looked in the mirror, but it was empty. The phantom was gone for now. Gradually, he managed to recover himself. He focused on calm and collect. He finished washing his face, wiping away his fear with a paper towel. When turning to leave, he bumped directly into a stranger who was just then walking in. Apologizing distractedly, he quickly retreated to the waiting room where he was sure not to mention any of it to Eva. "Am I gonna make it?" Eva jested, as Seven sat so quietly at her bedside. "Come on, Mr. Gloomy, talk to me." "I'm just so worried about you, babe. These episodes seem to be getting worse." "Don't say that. You're always so pessimistic. I will be fine. Don't worry." "I'm just trying to be realistic. Maybe there's some new experimental procedures we can inquire about trying." "Bite your tongue. You know better," Eva hissed. "You know how deadly against pharmaceuticals I am." She had tried more than a dozen different prescriptions and procedures in the past, even including some extremely strong antipsychotic medication and torturous electric shock therapy. None of it had any effect upon her black thoughts. In fact, she often argued that a lot of it had actually made the episodes worse, and that she was much better off when she was a young girl before the doctors had started meddling with her mind. They had turned her into a guinea pig of sorts. But for many years now she had avoided all treatments and begun to find herself again, despite the continued blackouts. She found her center again, with a clearer mind to face the challenges of her condition with more capable faculties. So Eva recovered from her spell that day, and like every other time, the doctors found nothing wrong with her. Nevertheless, and henceforward, however, her blackouts intensified, and in turn, Seven's visions of Fae refueled. Even back in Old York, the Silverskins somehow managed to weasel her way back into their lives once in a while, persistently nagging at the peripheries.